To order. First thing on the agenda is approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Karen Powers.
Second.
By Richard Dowling. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That passes. With voice vote. Number third, approval of the June 27th, 2022 minutes.
Are those anywhere? I didn't see them online.
So, sorry, the minutes from last meeting,
Yeah,
they should have been in your packet. When it was
maybe
emailed,
that's the issue. Okay.
yeah, it was in the packet that I emailed last Tuesday. I could double check, but I did open up the packet.
I will motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes made by Richard Dowling. Second by Steve Bender. Any discussion on the minutes? Discussion, seeing none. All in favor, say by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passed by voice vote. Fourth item, public comment. If you're here to talk about either one of the agenda items, I'll let you speak on when we come to the agenda items, but any other public comment? First from the audience, any public comment? Anyone in the Zoom audience here?
Nobody on Zoom. Just me.
Then we'll move on to agenda item number 5, discussion 4-H use of Sunnyvale Expo Center agreement.
Right, so we'll just summarize this quick. Dana Berger.
Yeah.
Just asked you your last name. Dana Berger is here from the county 4-H. And she's representing the extension office in regards to this contract with the 4-H Winnebago County 4-H program. Dana and I have been working on this since about April, March, when I brought this to the attention of the committee that we have a policy statement that was dated in 2009. This policy statement, I've checked with the clerk. I've had a hard time finding any record of it going through personnel and finance and to the county board, and it does have fees included in it. So back in, and maybe it did, but we can't find any record of it. So between some of that and just defining a few things in here a little better, and just 13 years have passed since it's last been evaluated, we wanted to bring this topic back up to the committee. There's a few questions that we have and a few items that we have. I did not have a resolution in the packet because for timing purposes, we do have time. So the idea would be to review the policy statement today. I'll highlight some of the questions that we have. And I apologize, the Expo manager Rick Helms was not able to make it today because he does have vacation this week. But we'll review it today, and then next month in August, we will bring a resolution and a final policy statement based on the conversations that we have today. So I'll just get started, and Dana, at any point too, feel free to chime in. It's a pretty short policy statement. As you can see, it's just 3 pages. What it is meant to do, the purpose of this policy is to set the fee and the policy in which the Winnebago County 4-H program can rent the Expo building, the Expo campus facilities for horse events, or any other potential event that they would want to rent it for. So when Dana and I were working through this, we wanted to make it simpler, clear some things up. There were a lot of exact dates and exact timings. We thought incorporating more flexibility into it would be better for both herself and the Expo manager. So I did highlight some of the changes or some of the questions that we had. So we'll just walk through this. We won't go through necessarily line by line, or I'll try not to go through line by line and just reread this because it wasn't the packet last week. But one of we'll read 1 and 2 because it is highlighted. So I apologize, I'm trying to get this off. There we go. So all no charge reservations related to the Expo building are subject to change if a paying client wishes to rent the building. Change notification will take place at least 30 days prior to the schedule for each event. I want to highlight this one And also number 2, which states all Winnebago County 4-H events not covered in this agreement will be charged using the Sunnyview Exposition Center rental fee schedule and are allowed a 25% discount. All events are scheduled on a first come, first served basis with a $100 non-refundable calendar deposit to reserve the date. So the reason these 2 are highlighted, I actually been kind of mentioning this to the committee over the last couple of months. The first one has to do with reserving the expo and the policy for acquiring space. As I kind of let the committee know, we in the past practice, we have never utilized this clause to basically take a paid rental for an existing 4-H event that's on the calendar and bump that 4-H event or cancel that 4-H event, at least to my knowledge and to Rick Helm's knowledge. So we wanted to bring that, if we're going to continue, I guess the point is if we're going to continue that practice of not bumping the 4-H if they're scheduled for an event in the expo or out at the horse arena, then I think we should really, in all reality, get rid of the policy that allows us to do it if we're not going to be doing it in the future.
You know, I agree, we should either get rid of the policy, so I don't think they should be bumped. And I don't believe that the sheriff department uses that facility, and I don't believe they have the same policy. They don't get bumped, you know, and they're here about 60 days a year. So if we're gonna basically penalize the 4-H, we're gonna penalize everybody, and they're all gonna get bumped, the sheriff department, everybody gets treated equal. And that wouldn't even be there if they wouldn't put that money in there. So I'm not for ever bumping them. If they schedule that event should go on. And the taxpayers are the ones that are putting the bill. We're sticking almost $6 million in there in the next basically 2 years. And 4-H is a good program. And we can pay for these kids to get educated, or we can pay for these kids in juvenile hall. But one way or the other, we're gonna pay for them. And I'd rather pay for them getting educated and doing things that keep them out of mischief. So unless the sheriff department has the same, and everybody in this county has the exact same.
And one thing I want to clarify, so the sheriff's department doesn't have a policy statement. It does not. Same with like the Wisconsin Correctionals or some of those other tax exempt municipal entities. I will say though, like I know the sheriff's department worked with Justin and I. There is an event that's going to be in there on a weekend that they typically have their family picnic in the expo, and we moved them to the pavilion. We did do no fee for the pavilion due to the same thing as expo. So I would envision the 4-H being very similar in the sense of if we have a larger event, we have a big, or we know a year ahead of time this event's coming in. We have time to work with 4-H and move some things around. That's how I envision this as well, working the same exact way. So sheriff's department has been kind of bumped, but once again, we work with them just like we work with 4-H.
Right, and I'm fine with that. I just don't want to see where the 4-H becomes unrealistic. Everybody can't afford a wide membership. Let's be realistic. If you got a family of 6 and you don't have $2,500 here to pay to be a wide member. This is something you need very little money to be. You can be an art, you can grow flowers, you can cook, you can have animals. It's good for every child to be a part of 4-H if they want to. But if we overprice it and we start charging, the Expo Center to rent that is what, $3,500 for a whole facility for a day. So if you start charging $3,500 a day for a weekend, I mean, that's $7,000. And then we charge $5 a table and $275 a chair. That doesn't include the tables and the chairs, doesn't include the stage, doesn't include the podium. That's all on top of that. 4-H can't afford it. And that's why when they partnered, they had their own facility. They partnered with us with that understanding. If we should get it in writing so that when people forget that they took all their money, you know, they used the home that where Pick and Save is on Jackson Street. That was their facility. They took all their money and put it in this facility. So I think we can't just pick them out of the hat and say, well, we're going to charge these. But the sheriff department and the COVID didn't pay us nothing. They've been here forever. And, you know, we don't bump them, you know, I mean, when we had that, we let them put a stand by the soccer shelter. So I'm not for anything that basically makes 4-H more expensive or limits the ability to have participants.
Anybody else, Karen?
Mr. Chairman, in full disclosure, I also sit on the UW Education Extension and Agriculture Committee, so I do have an interest in 4-H. to the county, not personally. I agree with almost everything Steve Binder said. The one thing is that the YMCA does offer scholarships for big families, and so that's not an issue. But I agree. This was 4-H investment that they made, and this idea that we can just, you know, bump them whenever something else better comes along, I'm completely against that. These are our kids. We need to be, you know, if they're in a Winnebago County 4-H club, they need to be able to do the stuff they're gonna do and not risk being bumped. So I'm with Steve on this. I'm with virtually everything you said, including whatever you said about the police, the sheriff's department.
Well, they do, they use it about 60 days, and it used to be on the calendar, now it's not on the calendar anymore. But they use it for training all the time, and we
Yeah.
don't bump them and we don't charge them.
Yeah.
And this is just another county organization that does a lot of
I'm
good.
standing up for 4-H.
You know, I personally, when I was growing up, I went to the boys club, my parents didn't want to pay for the YMCA. So, you know, I was, had a great time there, it was 50 cents or whatever to get in, it was cheap, you know, and the 4-H is, it's reasonably priced so people can participate. You know, and if we start charging, like for a horse show, we get $18,000-$20,000 a weekend. There's no way they can pay $18,000 or $20,000 a weekend, you might say we're never gonna have a 4-H horse show.
Jim or Rachel, got any initial thoughts on this area before Adam put on?
I was 100% for it when it was brought up. I am a past 4-H now myself. So, yeah, I wasn't unaware that they own that property. They literally gave it to the county.
Yeah.
Rachel? You have anything
Yeah,
to add?
could you clarify just the house, like, is their department using it? Are they using the facility in the same capacity that the 4-H program is?
It's typically for trainings. The
Okay,
only one that I referred to though is a kind of a once a year event where they invite all the sheriffs and their families. So kind of a work, you know, a team building, staff building type of an event.
okay,
But yeah, otherwise it's just for trainings.
okay. And
Same with the correctional, I mentioned that state correctional as well. They use it
Sure,
simply for trainings. And
sure. And
if
it
there's,
takes up the same amount of time as 4-H?
well, so like as an example, they typically come in on a weekend during the day.
Got it.
So typically, hey, the building's not being used on a Wednesday in the middle of the day. Yeah, absolutely. You can come in here and train.
Okay, and that doesn't interrupt the horse shows?
No.
Or the other, okay.
No.
And I'm guessing Dana's here representing 4-H. Hi. You guys are okay with this?
Yes, and I appreciate everybody sticking up for us, so, yeah, definitely.
Perfect, thank you.
And Maria, understand?
Nope, nope. So I think direction will be is that we'll remove this or create a clause that explains that, you know, something more general, but we'll remove line number 1.
We need to vote on that or anything, or we're just?
No, so so we highlighted a few areas. Dane and I did this actually together. We
Okay.
highlighted a few areas. We're gonna revamp this and bring it back to the committee in August with a resolution, because it'll have to, it does. Depending on what we decide with the fee, it will have to go to the personal finance because of the fee and then the board.
You're not saying you're taking lines 1 and 2 out.
Number 1, basically right now,
Paragraph.
so I will be editing, it says, it talks about no charge reservations, so we'll probably want to mention still something about no charge reservations, but we'll eliminate the fact that there's an ability to move them, within that 30-day window. So, or outside of the 30-day window.
That's understood. Next agenda item number 6, discussion and possible action, access.
We haven't made it through this one yet.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, does anyone have any thoughts on item number 2? And maybe item 2 we can come back to at the end after we see, because item 2 basically refers to anything that's not included in this agreement. Then if basically a 4-H wanted to do a 4th horse show, as an example, right now they have 3. They wanted to do a 4th horse show, then it would be charged at that 25% of what the.
And what would be the rate for that?
So right now, I don't have it in front of me, but off the top of my head, because I've been looking at it quite a bit. And we did the 25% thinking that that's what it was supposed to be, Rick and I. It was about $4,000 for.
And you take $1,000 off
So
of that.
Well, so it would be $1,000 for their event.
No, it's a 25% discount.
Yeah,
Yes,
but
you're right.
discount,
Thank you.
Take $1,000 off, it comes to 3,000.
Correct. Yeah, and that's for a fourth event. So we've never, I mean, to my knowledge and in the history, they haven't had a fourth event. And there hasn't been any request for a fourth event. I'm not even sure what weekends. We used to have so many full weekends. But that's the policy as of right now. If there was a fourth event, then yes, it would get a 25% discount, so it'd be roughly $3,000. Depending, it just depends on the
How
facilities.
would 4-H, how would 4-H come up with $3,000, or would you?
Well, we wouldn't be able to, that clause has been prohibitive for us to do anything extra than what was already, put in here years ago. So we don't plan to use the expo because we know we couldn't afford it.
I have a question for you. I kind of got this back here. You have a calendar with all your events, correct?
A lot of them are planned a year in advance, some are put on a few months in advance.
You had said, that anything extra is 25% discount,
Mhm.
but you have X amount that you're gonna use. And one of my thought was, what if they decide they're gonna take up everything? Every weekend, every
Oh.
building.
Uh-huh.
So there is a set amount, correct?
Currently, yes, for horse shows and pizza making, the things that are outlined in this particular agreement.
So I
Yeah.
saw the whole project was gone.
Yeah. and
Yeah,
that's-
maybe let's run through the projects. I
Okay.
think that might be a good idea. And then you guys can get a good
You know what I'm
picture of
running
what the
with?
projects are.
You're worried that we would come and just start taking up a lot of.
Yes.
weekends?
I'm not accusing you of it,
No.
but when you have this, they want a contract, usually it's pretty well stated exactly what is in there, so that would be helpful. I'm not trying to make.
Yep.
you guys
No,
look
not at all.
terrible.
No, absolutely. And I agree with you. I mean, obviously, we still have to have the shows that are gonna bring in revenue for the facility, and I think everyone understands that. Let's run through these, Dana. I don't know if you want to actually do a little bit more explaining and run through. I'll kind of
Sure.
scroll down in terms of the different projects you have and why we're striking so much out of this.
Okay, so pizza making, it's been going on for quite a while. We do it twice a year, usually in the month of October or November or March, April. And it's a Friday night and a Saturday all day. We make pizzas. It's a fundraiser for 4-H. And we mainly use just the expo building. So that's one that we definitely want to keep in there. The goat project and the dog project, you'll notice those are strike or taken out or proposed to be taken out. The goat project has not been extremely active in the last, I'm not even sure how many years. I think in the past, they've used the barns for different activities, but we're lacking in goat project leaders right now, and it just has not been something that they've needed. So we considered kind of in this negotiation, striking that. And the dog project, they are using the Oshkosh Kennel Club. And it just works better for them because they're set up perfectly for that. They have the equipment, they have the room. It's just a very nice facility for that. So, kind of removing those two items and trying to negotiate a little bit with other educational events. So for instance, there might be a weekday evening where we would like to have a bigger space to do a clothing review or a foods review or some type of an educational event like that. And so that particular other educational events was something that Adam and I kind of discussed in lieu of, these other projects that are getting removed.
And actually, so, judging by the few comments we had before, just when I was prepping the committee that this would be coming up and those types of things. And just really the amount of open time we have during the middle of the week. One of my thoughts when I was talking to Dana is why don't we make it a little bit more general? So there is the possibility for more weekday type programming if they want to do weekday programming. I mean, the facility's there, if it's empty and it's a county run program, why not utilize the facility is at least my thought process. So that's where we added this other educational events after we eliminated the dog project and the goat project to be less specific. And I can read it. We made it very simple, at least at this point. The Winnebago County 4-H program can utilize the Sunnyview Expo grounds at any time during the calendar year for the purposes of hosting an educational event. So we don't say it has to be a goat project, doesn't have to be a dog project, whatever educational event they're interested in that year. And then event days and times shall be discussed and scheduled with the expo manager to ensure that there is facility availability and to avoid other paid events. Paid events will take priority. So,
Since the paid event's already scheduled,
correct.
none of the paid event comes in later.
Right, there's that, and then obviously, we don't want to be putting, let's say, things on the calendar 2 or 3 years in advance just to lock in certain dates. And maybe we do need to put something that says maybe a year in advance or something like that.
So
Because that's what we do with our paid events. You have, so like, if you have your horse show this weekend,
Okay,
then after your horse show, you have 10 days where you can decide, do I want to come back next year? If you don't have a multi-year contract. So my point is, then there would be
okay, whoa,
more.
whoa. You
Yeah.
said you didn't want people, hate people stacking up multi-year contracts, but now you're saying, this is assuming you don't already
No.
have a multi-year.
So what I mean is, I wouldn't, you wouldn't, like, let's say I know 2 years from now, not next year, but 2 years from now, I'm gonna have an event, not next year, but 2 years from now. We wouldn't schedule an event 2 years from now. I mean, obviously, if you're
not.
doing the event every single year, that's different. Then you'd be scheduling it for next year. So, if Dana, let's just use one of these, says, okay, the dog craft, we want to bring it back. We want to bring it back to the expo. And it's July right now. We want to do it, next July. Well, let's look at next year's calendar, July, and let's see what's available. We get them on the calendar. Now they're on the calendar.
Is the expo scheduled pretty much tightly every weekend?
It depends on the time of year. May, the weekend, so actually the weekend 4-H horse show starts in May, which is the third weekend. Through the third weekend in September, it's pretty much full every weekend. And sometimes during the weekdays.
Calendar posted,
Yeah.
like there's no horse shows at all in August, but there's 2 weekends that are open.
There should be two, there's-
So 13th and the 20th, there's no horse. show.
Yeah.
They're completely open the whole week. But you can look right on the expo and click on the calendar,
Okay,
and every event that expo has for the next year is listed.
okay,
So
Or
it's like,
is-
we can tell, they used to list the sheriff's department, they don't list it no more, it shows the open days. But the
but
sheriff's
it's not
department,
really open, right?
We're working on our calendar. I will say that we're working on our calendar, we're working on our booking process. Justin's been doing, we've been kind of focusing on the billing portion first to make sure we have that in order. And we're working on having more public information and knowledge on the calendar itself. And
Is anything we're doing here preclude an emergency situation? For instance, they're not doing dog things here anymore, dog shows here anymore, dog projects here anymore. They've got a place that, what's that place called you're going to?
The Oshkosh Kennel Club.
The Oshkosh Kennel Club. So one day, a semi truck loses control, plows into the Oshkosh Kennel Club, like happened yesterday. And suddenly they have no place to be. Are they allowed to suddenly say, quick, do we have a space? Is there space available? Can they do that under this contract? Do they?
Yeah,
have an emergency
absolutely.
situation?
Oh, yeah.
Not kicking anybody else out.
no, and that's why this is very general. That's why these 2 lines are very general. It just basically says working with the expo manager to find a day rather than it has to be X, Y, Z. You got to fit all this criteria, trying to be more flexible to allow more ability to
Okay.
utilize the facility.
So educational event is general in nature, that, let's say they want to do an event, let's say at the holiday time, let's say in December, November, December, or let's say in February, like Valentine's, whatever, and it's, it's not so specific about educational, but they could do it and not get charged,
So it has to be a 4-H sponsored.
Yeah,
event.
yeah,
So it has
4-H,
to
yeah.
follow their mission
yeah, I'm
statement.
saying, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, really it would be anything that follows their mission statement that they're
Yeah,
working with, yeah.
okay, all right.
Yeah, we used educational because I think that was the wording.
That's our, yeah.
Thank you. We
Rachel?
asked another question to Dana, when she's here. Would you guys be interested in hosting events with less than a 30-day notice or not?
I mean, most likely not, because anything that is gonna be larger, that we would need a larger space for requires more than 30 days to plan.
Okay,
So I mean, chances of that happening are probably slim.
okay. No, that's fine. I was just curious to know if we could put a clause in here that if we had an event opening, like the dates in August, that the 4-H could take at a greater discount rate, but if that's not helpful, okay, never mind. Thank you.
And
Just for reference, out of the whole month of August, the expo has one event. They have the waterfall expo on the 27th. Other than that, we have the fair that takes it from the 1st to the 10th.
Okay,
The only paid event we have, horse shows, is one event on the 27th. Concert got canceled. So we have one event this whole month that's gonna be paid at the expo. The rest of these days are all, so the sheriff could use it, 4-H could use it, it's sitting there, the weekends are open. Somebody wanted to have a horse show on, 12th and 13th or 19th and 20th, there's no horse show booked.
And chances are, if we do need it for additional educational events, a lot of times those are a weekday evening. It's
Oh,
not
sure.
a week, because, we all kind of protect our weekends because everybody's busy. So a lot of times it's a day in the middle of the week. Expo's probably not being used anyway.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just didn't know if there was a way that we could make it beneficial for all of us, so, but
And
that makes
that's,
sense.
and that's outside the norm for August too, because as of 3 months ago, actually every weekend was booked, and then we had the cancellation of the concert and a horse show actually, so typically August is full, but. The meat, I just wanted to highlight the meat animal project, we removed that as well, because that's not a 4-H sponsored program, so I'm gonna have to reach out to. Who did you actually say that actually?
Sharon Gibson is the president of the Meat Animal Board.
Yep, so we're gonna have to, internally staff will figure out if we need to do any sort of policy thing with them, or if we can. So just, that's why that's,
So are you thinking about not charging the meat animal board or?
I have to meet with them and figure out what they do and when they do it, and so.
Yeah, it's one of those odd, it's a county, it's a separate entity of 4-H, the county committee, or not a county committee, but county-wide committee. Yet 99% of the kids that are in that committee are 4-H kids. So it's, they're closely tied.
I mean, I guess my question at hand, if I know from what, if they make any type of because of profit or whatever, what do it forces go to? I mean, I wouldn't call them profit, but whatever.
They do turn a little profit. It is an educational group, because they're running that auction at the fair. The kids are raising the livestock, they're auctioning it off, and then the kids, of course, make money, based on what it goes for. So what their profits are, I honestly, I don't know. I would think it's something you can easily find out, asking Sharon or their treasurer.
Before we move on to the horse project, any more thoughts in regards to the educational events? Horse project, so this was the other piece of the puzzle. Actually, this was what kind of brought up this conversation in general is this policy did not actually state what there's 3 horse shows. And it said the 3rd horse show was at a reduced rate. We had no idea what the reduced rate, other than history and what we billed them. What we were told from previous staff is it was a handshake agreement. So long story short, we learned with turnover in our department, we need to get some of this down on paper. So that's what this exercise has been about. We tracked some costs in May and even from this last weekend in July, because actually 4-H just had a show on this last weekend. And it's very, very minimal cost to the county from a staff standpoint, because 4-H does such a great job at cleaning up after the event and making sure that everything, is back to normal, so we can do minimal cleaning. Whereas, with some other horse events, we're, doing a little bit extra, obviously they're paying. So it's been a really good group that way. So what we looked at, Dana and I, is there's an event in May on the 3rd Saturday and Sunday. There's an event in July on the 4th Saturday and Sunday, and then there's an event in September on the 4th Saturday and Sunday. Historically, the May event was the event that was being charged the reduced rate. Now we're proposing that September is that event. And I don't know, Dana, if you can maybe explain why you propose that a little bit.
Sure. So the September event in the past has been a kind of a partnership with a group called WIHA. It stands for the Wisconsin Interscholastic Horse Association. And so WIHA basically planned the event. They used their liability insurance, and a lot of our 4-H youth participated in it. And so we kind of did like an MOU type thing with them. And with UW-Madison Risk Management, currently 4-H is listed, our extension is listed on the contract. And because WIHA is running it, they're using their liability. It's not technically our event, even though our majority of our horse kids participate in it. For risk management purposes, they will not allow the contract to read 4-H. It has to be with WEHA. And so, I suggested moving that fee. WEHA is willing to pay, you know, some fee towards that. And so I had made the suggestion of, let's save our horse and pony project some money, move that fee over to WEHA. And the contracting would be in their name.
And so the fee in the past was $480. That was the handshake agreement in 2011, I believe. I'm not sure why there's a different date on that, but there was. It was in so amount of 480. So what Dane and I talked about, because we saw how minimal the work was for the horse show, or the horse shows, we thought what would make more sense is to take that amount and use inflation since 2011. And since 2011, using the consumer price index, we were able to calculate 22%. Now that's not including this year. This year will be probably up to 8 or 9% by the end of the year. But so that brings it from 480 to 585 and 60 cents. That's why it's so exact. Just so you're aware as to where that number came from. So we took, what we added to the agreement was that the reduced rental rate shall be 585.60. This rental rate will increase yearly utilizing the consumer price index. So what that means, just like any other contract, we would just re-update this policy manual every year. Obviously it's a policy manual, so we wouldn't have to worry about bringing it back to if it's an approved policy with that in it, we're not gonna have to bring it back to the personal finance and the board every single year. So we would just buy whatever the consumer price index, and I can spell that out a little bit more to make sure that, you know, people know that that's where it needs to be derived from. We would just update it every year by that amount. Just to give you an example, obviously this year is a little bit of an odd year. But if we were to, let's say we're to stay at 9%, the consumer price index, you know, we'd be looking at $52. But on an average year, we are, you know, somewhere around 2% typically, which is $11. So just to give you an idea, it's a very minimal increase year by year, but what it'll do is we won't be here at the same place 10 years from now if everything stays equal and things are easy for cleaning up and that kind of thing. The only other thing too is the dumpster fee is charged and the utility rate is charged. Those are set in the fee manual or the in chapter 19 by the county board as well, or not the dumpster fee, that's we just charge costs. The utility rate is set by chapter 19 by the county board.
That fluctuates, that can fluctuate, right?
We actually have to, that's gonna be on the agenda for next month, because for some reason, the utility rates for 2023 and 2024 are not in there. All our other rates through 2024 are in there. So we'll be bringing that back, which is perfect timing with the expo improvements anyways. And that's why we had delayed that to see what those true rental rates. Actually got our first utility bill for lot 3 today or this week, so.
I have a question for you.
And then, yeah.
You got it highlighted, the question I have is this 4-H, horse project, tax sale, whatever. I look at all 4-H as 4-H. So if they were, so I understand that. So if they're scheduling any event, is it am I misunderstanding this? It doesn't cost them anything. But any additional outside of what I asked about a schedule, according to the front page, is a 25% discount. So you got a discount, and then you got another page saying you're gonna pay. I'm a little confused.
And that's why.
Is it free or not?
Well, and that's why we have that discussion, or we're having that discussion, is because it's up to the committee, really up to the county board, what we charge, because it's a fee, if we charge, and what policy we go by, like for cancellation and that sort of thing. So that's all for discussion today. The 25% in the past has only been referred to for anything in here. You know, in my opinion, that 25% should be changed to just horse shows. Because it's a larger operation, whereas if there's an educational event in the expo and, you know, they're doing another pizza making or another, you know, dog project or those types of things, that it wouldn't be that the 25% for like a 4th horse show would be, that the 25% would be for that. that's my opinion, but that's up to the committee to determine what
We
we're
have
gonna
to
charge.
have a defined number. And we're gonna go from that defined number of usage of the building, or whatever event they want. And anything above that defined number is gonna cost 25% more.
Correct.
So,
So
I
we
think the
really don't need
expo,
that.
expo should stay like it is. The expo should be free, just like we basically treat the sheriff's department and everybody else. As far as the horse shows go, we have 3 horse shows listed in here, and the fourth horse show is 585, or the third horse show in September would be 585.60, which I think we could have basically kept it at the 485, what it was. But I'll go along with the 485.60. I think that's affordable. And then if they want to have it more than that, then we'd have to basically work out an agreement. But I think 3 horse shows is more than we're ever probably gonna have, you know, and like I say, this month, there's 2 weekends open, there's no horse shows. So if they had a horse show for free, what's the difference? It's sitting empty. You know
Well,
what I
I'm
mean?
all for it today free, but the kind of, the two are kind of contradicting each other. We were putting it into a legal agreement where you get 25% off, but actually.
Well, that
you get
25% would be basically, that should be eliminated, because they're paying, for the third horse show, they're paying $585.60. The other 2 horse shows are free, and everything else at the expo center is free. So the only thing 4-H is gonna pay the Parks Department for is the third horse show at $585.60. Everything else is basically, yeah, no cost.
Unless you want everything to be free, we'd be good with that.
We could be,
well, I guess my,
transparent, make it all free.
Adam, my question would be, what are all the costs that take to count the $585, whatever we charge? I guess that's what I'd like to see. And, I'm all for, free stuff too, to a certain extent. And, horse shows, if there's not a lot of work that your staff has to do, I'd be open to it. I'm not totally agree, but I have to know what all that 585.60 entails. And, before I give that totally free, we're already giving 2 free horse events free. Which I guess they could, I don't know if you charge them not in your event, that's immaterial, but I would like to know what makes up that 585.60 fee. Is that just something you made up? I understand we charge for the utilities and the dumper seat, but that's what I like to do before I go and give everything free. I want to know what's all part of that and what your staff has to do, opposed to what they do. That's what I'm want to know, because after they have an event, there's you have to set it up, you have to take down, blah blah blah. That's what I like to know before I get so enamored as Steve was and give everything free. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, you can, the 480 or the 585.60, you can look at as just like any one of our other rental fees within our fee schedule for the Parks Department, whether it's renting a shelter, renting the expo, renting the equestrian complex. It's a fee to help cover overhead of the building and the department. Yes, there's minimal maintenance that we have to, but we still have Rick's salary, who's all expo. We still have to haul manure after the events are done. They pay for the dumpster fee, but we load the trucks. We still have to mow the grass. We still have to pay for utilities. The other 2 events, they don't pay utilities or the dumpster fees you guys do for the other 2 events,
Dumpsters,
so.
we do, I believe,
Yeah, you do I know for dumpster. But. So, I mean, there's still all the overhead costs. Yes, it is very minimal hours for cleaning out stalls, and I mean, they cleaned out their stalls really nicely. It would be an issue if we ran into something where, we do run into an occasional horse show where they don't clean out their stalls. Now our staff has to, I mean, they're supposed to, and they clean out most of them, but we're going through and cleaning out maybe 20 out of 200 stalls. Takes our staff 2 or 3 extra hours. We actually bill that back to the renter. Because in their contract, they're supposed to clean out their stalls. 4-H, we haven't had that situation. So when I say minimal, I mean, we're not doing extra above and beyond. We're not going back into stalls, cleaning out the stalls that they should have cleaned out. We are hauling away the manure, we're mowing the grass, we're, doing any cleanup things, maybe a little bit of trash around, but even then they put their bags in the dumpsters and that's why it's very minimal.
And just for a reference, like we created over 100 more camping sites for Life Fest. We got one dime from those sites. They use the hauler and, you know, they rent them out for $280 a site. They made about $28,000 and now we're gonna worry about $585.60. Life Fest made $30,000 and we're gonna worry about $585.60 from 4-H.
Well, you bring up a point, Steve. I mean, I was gonna bring up, it's not highlighted, but I read here about camping. Campers for these social use parking lot 2 and 4. If we have campers, do they charge and do we charge them for using camping facilities?
We don't charge them. I don't know if you guys charge.
And they do charge, however, any fees go towards paying for the judges, the awards and trophies, all that kind of stuff. So they're not making a profit. It's not like a huge,
But they do charge,
they do. Mhm.
and there's no, no, smart question. We don't have any limit to how many campers can be out there, am I correct?
No, I just put lot 2 and 4 based off the size of the events in the past and to make sure it's,
So,
if it ever grew to 3, they could,
Yeah, I mean, that's.
so
we can put 3.
that's a kind of, to Steve's point,
Sufficient.
yeah, we don't charge Light Fest, but we're not charging. Another group use the camping area and they're benefiting from that camping, so.
We do charge Life
Yeah, we charge Life Fest.
You do charge, okay, I'll-
We got $25,000.
There's a 25,000 and then they paid.
$35,000. We gave them 100 more camping sites. They got one, not one dime.
well,
Is there wiggle room if there was some special event, something Dana gets declared 4-H leader, director of the year. The governor's coming, both senators are coming. Suddenly we got a big event coming. Is there wiggle room to push something in, assuming there's not already something booked for that weekend that's already been paid for? But is there wiggle room for something special if it should happen?
We're always flexible.
He's flexible. I like.
I mean,
him.
obviously, that's why we want to get it in writing, because whoever replaces me someday, maybe they're not as flexible and they're more rigid and it's by the, so.
And I do want to say Adam has been wonderful to work with. I mean, going through this and your support has been, outstanding too, so. we appreciate that.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, what we need the committee to decide, and ultimately then everyone else, the county board, is how much are we charging? And, what are the policies behind that? And that's why we highlighted these few areas, so that way, this is just staff's recommendation, after working together, as the parks and the 4-H, and, trying to come up with some ideas.
And just for, some of the new members, the BMX track, they don't pay nothing to use that facility, like where you see that on 76. That track, they maintain it, but we don't charge one dime for that facility. The go-kart track right behind there, they maintain it. We don't charge one dime for that facility. They use it all summer. They have events there that Vermillion, that used to be when they had the 2 baseball diamonds there, the BMX track uses that. They sell concessions out of there. We don't get nothing. We put a holding tank in there for $5,500, they charge them a dime. But it's good activities for kids to stay out of trouble. And if that's what it takes for this community, we need activities, so kids basically have something to do. It's, my daughter raced the BMX track, used to be a county park before they needed the space and moved it over there. It's a family event that basically keeps the family together. You got good solid bond. And that's what you need. You can basically get these kids so that they're on the right track and they're successful in life. So I'm never for how much money I can get out of a BMX track or a go-kart track or from 4-H.
Or 4-H event. Yeah.
I want to see the kids be successful in life. And if we need $585.60 that bad, I'll go for it. But I really think with our budget, we could basically do that event for nothing, and it's not going to basically affect this parks department one bit.
I believe that this whole thing came about when we were talking about raising the user fees or others, and then the 4-H came on. My impression at that time, somehow I'm getting into this right, is that 4-H had basically turned their treasury over to the Sunnyview. And yet they're paying to use it, and I was under the impression that they were not going to pay anything except for like electricity and such. Am I wrong? That's what I thought. Boy, it's that side.
That's what,
That may be what your thoughts, Jim. I guess I'd heard Adam or Tom.
that's kind of what I'm remembering as well, that we got pulled up short and said, hey, this was 4-H property that got turned over to us. And they should be able to use the facility without fees. I mean, I understand dumpster fees for horse manure and all that stuff. I understand all that.
That was way before my time on this board. I was back in way.
There were, I did just a teeny bit of, I mean, there's a little, as we were looking for some things, you know, like I know like the covered arena. The county paid 700, I'm going off the top of my head, about 700,000 for the big covered arena.
Remember doing that?
Obviously, we're doing like the improvements we're doing now with electrical and camping, so. 100% 4-H, you know, yes, from what I understand, it was their land, and with the swap, with being downtown. But, the county has put in a lot too, and I'm not saying, because to Supervisor Binder's point. What we do with BMX right now and, Kidsstart is we do just charge utility rates. They do fix up their own buildings and that kind of thing, but. The infrastructure, a well goes out, or those types of things we have paid towards. So this is similar in the sense that we're paying towards some capital projects over there. Obviously, we have other paid events that use the space that's a little bit more shared than the BMX and the go-kart. Hence why if a sink breaks over there, they're fixing it, not us. You know, but if the water supply goes, then, you know, we fix that. So that's kind of the difference over there.
The history that, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
This man might be able to give a little input on 4-H, if you want.
Yeah. I can tell you a little bit about 4-H, but it's mainly about the fair. Tom Egan, 3017 State Road West 16. That land that was given down there never belonged to 4-H, it belonged to the Winnebago County Fair Association. And the deal was, when it come back, we went back down here, Paul Stevenson was the county executive at that time. That the fair paid $1, and they got everything. They got the use of everything. So then, I'm going to say the Parks Committee, and the county board agreed with it. Then they decided that they needed the money to go ahead, so we had enough paying for electricity and things like that come about. So this is how it all come about. Supposedly, you go back to the beginning, it was supposed to be free, everything was supposed to be free, and of course, the fair, 4-H was the fair. There was no fair 4-H or whatever, it was the fair. Well, now, kind of 4-H is on their own, but the fair is still the main part of it. So that's the whole story behind it all. I mean, you can go clear back, it was an arm one all over, but that's where it was down here at Fair Acres. And, so it wasn't 4-H, it was fair, and from there, it went on from there. But it used to be, moved out there. Here.
Commissioner Chairman.
And that's my point, that was the agreement, it was $1, and it's like if it was a handshake, or if it was a written contract, the county's handshake ought to be worth something, and I just think we keep beating this to death, trying to get a little bit more money out of something that we partnered with them, and, you know, if we want to continue to put money in there, it's not because we want to improve it for 4-H. 4-H has all the room they need. They don't need any more camping. They don't need any more parking. You know, they're happy with the parking lots that we have. We don't need to spend $3 million on blacktop and renovating. We're doing that for Life Fest and to attract other big events. We're not doing that for the fair or for 4-H. So the money we're spending, you know, is to enhance the facility to get more revenue. I mean, yes, if they have more than the 3 horse shows, I guess we'd have to negotiate something because we can't book the whole summer, but, you know, I'm not for the $585.60. I don't think that our budget is that tight that we can't find that somewhere else. So, you know, my opinion would be to take that right out of there. And it's just, we're kind of being nitpicky, worrying about that little bit of money when they had an agreement with us, it was free. It wasn't electricity, it was nothing. That was the original agreement.
We keep talking about 3 horse shows, and what if there's a 4th one? But this paper says 2 horse shows.
It says, so no charge horse shows include May and July, reduced right here. Reduced charged, shows include the September one. Oh, and I apologize, I see where you say it says 2 scheduled shows, 4 days until the law.
Yeah, what?
Oh, yeah, so, but then it says all other shows scheduled will be charged at a reduced rental rate, and that's when we say the reduced rental rate shall be $585.60.
But that's for a third.
A third one,
But
which is,
we already have 3 scheduled.
well, that's what
And
it
this
is.
says 2 scheduled.
Well, so 2 scheduled shows and 1 at a reduced, and all other shows scheduled will be charged at the reduced rental rate. And that is, so I think you're running into where staff got confused, because we saw a reduced rental rate, we didn't see 480 anywhere, we saw the 25% off. And we thought, so we sent 4H a bill for, I think, $3,000, and Dana was like,
Dana had a heart attack.
I think.
yeah, but
Karen
that's
talked
what
during
Rick and I were
the
trying to read, we had no idea that there was this 480 out there, because it was never in,
Okay.
and that's how this all started.
Hey, Adam, as far as the parks budget is concerned, if we nix the 585.60, are we gonna lose our shirts?
No, at the end of the day, the 585.60 is not going to affect. With the facility this year is scheduled to bring in roughly 200,000, well, we're at 200,000 right.
And we are gonna be able to start the 4-H fair, we're gonna be able to start the county fair without anybody having to go into borrowing money.
For the county fair. I'm not sure. What you mean by
They
that?
don't do anything.
We don't do anything with the county
They're
fair.
in good shape. We gave them last year in our budget, we gave the county fair $100,000.
Okay,
And they had money but coming in this year, so they're actually, I think they have over $300,000 right now. So they're probably in good shape this year.
okay.
Yeah, that's my recommendation, and I'll take that 585.60 right out of there and just go back to the way it originally was. They paid $1 and they got their,
Are we able to negotiate that during this meeting? I know that.
Yes,
the
it was-
agenda just says discussion.
So this is for
This is discussion, are we gonna bring up next month, because I
right.
have views, but I'll share when you bring it up.
We're gonna bring it up next month, and basically staff will adjust this, this policy statement for next month's agenda, not that it still can't be changed next month. But we'll adjust it based off the conversation we have here today, and from what we feel today, based off the discussion
Okay.
everyone's in agreement with.
So next month, we'll definitely have action on it, right?
Absolutely, because
Okay.
I know they have to set their budget by September, so we'll be right in line with that September.
Okay.
Okay. The 585.60, I mean, the 480 didn't make sense. It would make more sense if it was a percentage, or we just went back to the dollar and honored that deal from way back when. I can't wrap my head around this number.
You got any more on this agenda item? Yeah,
No, I'm just listening to everyone.
okay, no, anything else anyway? Okay, so next month we'll have an action item to vote on, okay? All right,
Well, we're gonna vote either accept or not to accept, or we're going to,
well, we'll have an action item, and I think staff, if the, right now, the recommendation will be 585.60, am I correct?
So at this point, I feel we'll leave the 585.60 in there, and it's easier then for the committee to just say the amount that they would like in there. In the meantime, if you have any questions for me, in regards to how the 585.60 came about or anything like that, let me know. Sounds pretty much like it's a consensus that no more bumping, so, we'll remove some of that language, and clear up a lot of this, and I apologize, I wanted to give it in a little bit more draft form so we could workshop it. I know it made it just a little bit more confusing. But we will eliminate some of this crossed out items, some of the item that talks about bumping the 4-H. And I think we'll work on, Dana and I will talk a little bit more too about defining, because I do agree there's a little bit of confusion in regards to, it basically says you can schedule as many educational events as you want. Yet there's the 25% for an additional event, and I think that 25%, which should just be for the horse show. And the expo building, it sounds like, at least for what I'm getting from the committee, would be more that we're just, yes, if there's an opening, use the building for an educational event. But we'll work through that, and we'll clear up some of that in this for next month. And we'll have a draft resolution for next month as well. Once again, that can be edited as well by this committee before it's approved and sent on.
Mr. Chairman,
So
that's Dana, question.
Sure.
Have you, in your history, have you been bumped?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Rick
So
wasn't
then,
aware
Okay.
anytime.
So
Okay.
just so I'm clear, so you're looking at keeping in the 25% discount just for horse shows?
That, I mean. So at least my opinion is that it's, you know, at some point we have to have some sort of. Cause there could be the situation where all of a sudden 4-H wants 6, 7, 8, 9 horse shows in the middle of summer, and how do we? Work with that, not that they couldn't, but do we want 6, 7, 8, 9 free horse shows in the summer? And I think that's just something,
Are
you know,
horse
Dana's.
shows money makers? What are horse shows?
They're kind of educational. Some of them are just rides, some of them are competitions. And they can actually win like trophies and that. So that's where the horse kids actually are displaying their,
But is this a money maker? Do you charge these kids for these?
there is an entry fee, but it's minimal. It's like between $2 and $5.
Oh,
So yeah, it's very minimal.
And that's where the difference between, so a lot of 4-H events in the expo are weekdays, weeknights. You know, usually we have openings, you know, weekdays, weeknights. Whereas our horse shows over there are typically between 10 and 20,000. A paid horse show is bringing in about 10 or 20,000 for the county. So it's two very different. If we're gonna block off so many horse or weekends for horse shows for 4-H, then we will start. Then when we're talking about budget and that 585, now we start talking about 10, 20,000 per show. That's when we're gonna start to see it hit or affect our budget.
well, then it seems like it would be fair to figure out what is a number that 4-H typically or realistically would want to do. Sounds like they already want to do 3.
Right, and it's been,
And,
I don't know
and
for how
It's been
long, but
free
it seems,
forever.
yeah,
And I'm wondering, I'm just throwing out an idea, does it make sense to assign a number of show maximum than
it absolutely.
a
does.
discount? You know, I don't know what works best for Expo, but
One more comment, not maybe not. The reason I brought up a defined number, you go and go on your path, please, so you have a record. We had X amount all these years. We had 4 goat shows, 3 dog shows, 6 horse shows, whatever it was, we had a defined number. Now, when you put that down on the calendar, that's yours, my understanding was free. We haven't, that's the way I understood it. Now, according to this, I understand that. Now, if you want an additional horse show, you get a 25% discount. And if it's 10,000, you know. 4-H income is.
right.
But
Yeah,
I mean, it
anything-
does make that, keep that calendar open
Right.
so that the county can make money. I don't want to sound like that, but that's,
I understand.
you know.
No, I think that's fair. We don't want to abuse anything.
That's why I wanted to
Yeah.
find them.
You know, in the month of September, there's basically only 2 horse shows, paid horse shows. The other one's the 4-H, and third week in September is wide open, there's no horse show. So basically a weekend, nobody's gonna even be using Expo at all. There's no events the third week in September at the Expo. So it's not like we're gonna lose any revenue. If somebody wanted the 4th week of that, I'm sure when this all started, 4-H would have maybe switched their week to the 3rd week. You know, because there is an extra week right now. There's 2 extra weeks. 4-H has the 4th week, and there's nobody on the 3rd week in September. There's no horse shows at all other than 4-H in August. So I mean, it's not like we're kicking people out that are paying $20,000. There's all kinds of open events that there's only one paid event in the whole month of August. So I mean, it's not like our calendar's full.
Yeah, and basically, I mean, how I view it is by keeping that 25% discount clause in, you're pretty much ensuring we will never do more than 3 shows because we could never afford the facility, even at a 25% discount. Whether it's that, if that's how you want it, or if it's a maximum number saying you can't do more than 4 free horse shows or whatever it is. I don't, however.
And
The board,
the climate, sort of we coming out of 2020, the climate's changed the last 2 years too a little bit. I mean, last year we had actually, you mentioned the 3rd week of September, we had our largest short show ever, and it was about 20,000. So they were actually too big for our facility after trying it for 1 year, and so that's why they didn't come back here, because there's just not enough barn space for them. So each year it changes slightly on those open dates. They may be open this year, but more than likely, we get inquiries all the time from paid horse shows for coming.
Sure. I just,
Just
on
under.
there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
This
know
year
what
they didn't come back.
revenue we're gonna make.
Yep.
We're gonna basically, we have one paid event in August.
Yep.
That's what we have. The concert canceled, so.
Yep.
There is no more concert August 17th. That guy canceled. So we have one paid event in August. And we're gonna make basically very little money. So the rest of the time it sits empty unless we let somebody use it for a good purpose.
So we'll look forward to that resolution next month. We'll move on to the agenda item number 6. Discussion possible action answer for Lake Petermore, Town of Oshkosh. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna let, if you were here from the public, we'll let you speak. If the members of the committee have questions of the audience, you may, but then, when they are done, when the committee will act and discuss among themselves. So first of all, I'll open up to any audience member who wants to talk about the matter. Go ahead.
And Chair, my chair of the town of Oshkosh, my supervisor, Bill Down here also. I'd like to make a little presentation, mainly to the new members on the committee. Can you please put this up so people can look at it, this site of your area? Can you get it on the screen there, please? Or not? Is that possible?
I have GIS up, that's fine.
Just sit
I
right here.
can't pull up that.
Okay,
I can
okay.
pull up GIS. though.
Okay, thank you.
Is it in our meeting packet, Adam?
Yeah, actually, we actually do have. Yep. A version of it, yes. Yep.
Put that previous one up with the overall region of the area. That whole area, there we go, or put it back, just. He's one big review there, like that, just have a little region, full region. There we go. Okay. The east end of Butamore doesn't have adequate access. It's not the people in town of Oshkosh. People in town of Oshkosh live on the lake. We got access. Our citizens. Here to represent the whole community, where people want to get to recreate on the lake. For big boats, you've got, Rainbow Park put in, that's up 40 horse or more, or 500 horse or whatever. Put in Rainbow Park, put in Somers Bay, beyond Butamore. It's for the other activities, small boats, canoes, kayaks, the duck hunters, with duck skiffs and that, people that want to go out and ice fish in the winter, some habitat out there where there's some good opportunity for fishing. They need access to the lake. When I was a kid 55 years ago, where Shore Preserve is now, there was access there. I took my dance station wagon and skiff in the back and put in over there. But duck hunting, that's gone. And most of those lands are getting all developed in the city for sewer and water. And when the city developed it, there was no access. Access is gone. Now there's some issues and some concerns, and there's some real opportunities here that aren't gonna last. There's still some vacant lands out there. There's vacant lands on just east of the Wywash there. Castle family owns the land on the north side of that creek, whatever you want to call it there. The Senator Johnson family did own the land on the south side. There was talk of being a charter school there. I guess that isn't going to happen. The rumors, I heard, only rumors, but maybe somebody else is going to do something. And these developers, when the city works with them, they don't care about access or whatever. Your staff here, this board or whatever, needs to work with the city parks department. I brought stuff up 35 years ago before I was ever involved in government. Answer from the county to the city, there was no money. Well, guess what? 150 years ago, people had foresight. The state, they set aside all the Silent Point stuff. They still own it. You can lease it for 20 years for $20 or something. But the state set all that land aside. The city of Oshkosh had foresight. Menominee Park, the whole region, there is that the public gets to use it. We need to do something here on the east side of Butamore before it happens on both sides of that creek. We need to work with the city of Oshkosh, their parks department or whatever. I'll do what I can to work with people, but this county board needs to work with people that when that gets developed there, not after they go into the development, they need to go out before and talk to them so that when somebody comes in and wants to develop on both sides of those creeks, those lands for sale signs are out there now with the realtors. Tom Castle's maybe willing to work a little bit with somebody, but only donate some land if it's tax incentive wise helpful to him, but isn't somebody's going to actually do something with it, to put in a parking lot there. So then for the other types of recreation, whether it be for walking out in the winter or running an ATV out there to go ice fishing or something, or just to go look at the birds and the wildlife, he's willing to work with people that maybe a parking lot could be put there. And I'm not looking at here, okay, this is about beautiful, we do one thing, then we're done. No, there's different areas here, there are different opportunities for different uses. We need to look at all of them. You need to look at that castle property, you need to look at the Johnson, whoever owns that property on the south, and then Edgewood or whatever, the town. We work with people a little bit, but it's not gonna solve the problem. When the fish really start fighting out there, we're gonna have a parking problem. You need that access with adequate parking. We opened up a little bit of parking there. Bill was the main one here or whatever, worked with people. We're gonna allow a little parking there, but not a real lot, and we're not gonna block that fire lane over there. So there's a little room for parking when the fish start fighting. Is there enough? No, there's not enough. The Wash Trail over there, you need to get that opened up with, you need to work with the state or whatever, get this thing done. Tell them to go pound sand or whatever. There's no reason why you ain't gonna run an ATV down there off the side. It's all rock. It was built with rock. It's not mud, it's rock. There's a million, do the numbers in 100 years, how many freight cars went down there, each weigh 100 tons, millions, over a million of them. And it didn't hurt anything. That ATV is not gonna hurt anything. But there's a parking right here now. You can use a little of that parking. But say, well, we gotta have more parking. Well, you can park on McDougal Drive in there. It's in the town. There's a real wide shoulder from here to there or whatever. Park there, and then someday down the line, maybe you'll put a little more parking there. But let them park there, let them run those ATVs or snowmobiles down there and get onto the lake. We've all been down there. Adam's been down there with me. You know exactly where we're gonna access. There's rock there. It's not a big issue about destroying the wetlands. There's all rock there now. Dump another load of rock above the high water marks. It's not a big issue there. And then the ATVs can get on and off there. That needs to be opened up. Before they put that high line in there, when I was a kid, over 50 years ago, I used to go out there in the summer and everybody walked down the railroad grade and shot blackbirds. Well, now you're gonna shoot blackbirds because the high lines are there. But they were using it for recreation back then. The other thing, the county, that was donated by somebody in our town, 60 acres on Riff Road. Up there, up the east of the Shangri-La area, up in the top to the left there. You got 60 acres there. There's some high ground there. It's not all wetlands. There's some high ground there. It's in the town. You don't need the blacktop. You need to level that off with some equipment and put some stone in there. Let people park there. They'll recreate themselves. They'll get through there. They'll run their ATVs out through there to get on the ice in the winter. They'll have some parking there. And down the line, it'd be nice to get a ditch in there. Then you can put a small crafting boat, a 10 horse or something, or for duck hunting to get access to lake there. It's in an area where there's no development there, so there's not a problem like on Edgewood at 4 in the morning, everybody's making noise or whatever. It's undeveloped. The land just to the east of that parcel, it says Riff Road Development Corporation. Well, I don't know who owns it, but when that gets developed, it's not gonna be town, it'll be city. And then the same thing. Need to work with the city on that there's some access site where somebody can walk out there and get on the lake there. Because developers today, they don't care. They're gonna get that bottom line in that last lot. If you don't have it, when they come to ask about developing, they're not gonna create access. People don't care like they did 100 years ago. Then you're gonna lose those opportunities. Right now, get that worked out and get the wire wash opened up. We already did what we could to give a little more parking on Edgewood and look at these other opportunities for developing there. There's no reason why you couldn't put that up. You don't have to go nuts like you did up at the boat launch up on the toward Nina there or whatever. This is in the town. Let them spot off, put some gravel and let people park there so they can use this to get on the lake. There's a lot of different things. Hey, our board, if I go down tomorrow or whatever, we got some couple good board members that are concerned, they'll work with us, work with you guys or whatever. Let's, like I say, it's not for the town of Oshkosh, it's for the community we care about. Let's get some of this stuff going here. If there's any particular thing, I'll come by and come in and work with the staff here anytime or whatever. So see if we can, rather than just rant, rave, or whatever, let's see if we can get some projects going here. A lot of this isn't gonna cost money. It's not like we say, like I say, we're gonna do one and okay, that end of east end of Winnebago now is okay. There's a lot of opportunity here. We need to pull in on and take advantage of before it's gone. Once those properties are gone, the development is gone. Bill, go ahead.
Bill Demler, 4625 Plumbers Point Road.
I'm also town of Oshkosh supervisor. Steve brought up to me one time about DOT remnant. It's parcel number 0180095. And there's some wetlands in there, and I'd be willing to work, Jim Erdman and Donnie Herman from the Outer Streets Fishing Club. Both made comments that they had equipment that could go in there and clear some of the brush out. I'd be willing to coordinate that with the Parks Department and those guys, get any liability waivers that you need signed and all that. I'm pretty sure the town would be willing to pay for a culvert to come in off Lake Butamore Drive for a driveway, once if we were able to clear that. And I know you're having issues with ATVs down the Waiwash. If we could at least get the parking lot built, we can always work on that later. I don't want to say, we can't go down the trail with ATV, we don't want the parking lot. I'd rather see the parking lot, people will walk. And Donnie Herman from the Otter Street Fishing Club, you know, he states that adamantly, that fishermen will walk. And actually, I measured it out, the walking distance from Edgewood Lane all the way down out onto the ice and parking over there on that parcel and walking up the trail, it's almost identical. So it's not gonna be a big difference for people. I don't know what's happening with that remnant. I know Adam said he was working on it. I don't know if anything, you know, has come to fruition since then or not, but like I said, I'd be willing to help coordinate with the parks, Otter Street and Jim and any other equipment. And somebody would have to get the gravel in there. But, that's all I have.
I'd like to make one more comment. Yeah. Go ahead.
Bill mentioned about gravel, that's no issue. Bill and I both have dump trucks. I'll pay for the gravel ourselves. Take a lot of gravel. Not park, not actually get that opened up with a down there so they can get ATVs down the line.
Just one second, gentlemen. Any other public comments on this issue? No, you're going to Jim, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I don't know if I can ask that one.
Sure, we'll go ahead. I'll that.
The parking lot, I'm very familiar with the area, I've gone the trail. As a kid, we used to go there all the time. You said the property that Castle was willing to donate, what's where?
He did say no. He said he'd look into it, if there was some tax, if something's gonna get done. It's not gonna be going, maybe a man and nothing gets done. We went to talk to the person, I don't know him personally, but since I talked, I mean, a resident in our town, and he's on my plan commission, he's a stakeholder in the whole region out there, with things he's purchased.
Yeah, I'm trying to think where you guys are talking of putting that parking lot. Here.
Yeah, I can't tell from the map.
I can't either.
In the north side.
Wait. Wait,
The DOT remnant.
Adam, you have more on about parking lot?
No, I mean, Bill, my point was I could run through everything, and kind of give a summary.
It would be north of the slough.
This north castle. On Castle, man, north of the school is some high ground in there, near Lake Butamore.
Adam, could you zoom into
It's
that?
up this way, James.
East and west would be low.
This
Where's
is,
that?
this is the property he's talking about.
Okay,
This is,
I see it in the printout, it's
Yeah.
just,
North of the school is.
and I apologize, it's this one, it's not this one, this is owned by someone completely different,
okay,
it's these two.
Just for reference, any land owned in the city, when you go to parking lot, has to go to city standards. Should have to have curving gutter, green space and blacktop.
it has to,
In the city.
You can apply for an exemption, but
They don't give them exemptions.
Right.
The land on West Wind is a remnant that the state owns, they'll give it to us for nothing.
okay,
We put a culvert in off of Lake Butamore Drive and we make a small parking lot and make them walk with their
sure,
stuff to the lake. The cost is minimal.
okay,
It'll take us a little bit of time to get the land. That's how we got the dog park in Edina. That was a state remnant. They basically look at ways of getting rid of it, they usually don't sell them, but if
Sure.
a municipality, a town, anybody can use that piece of land, they'll beat it over to you for free. So we could get that piece of land for free, and then we just have to work with the town of Oshkosh, and they were willing to help. Bill worked for the highway department, he was superintendent for, what, 10, 12 years, you know, so I mean, he built roads in Winnebago County, he's not like he has no knowledge, he was
Sure.
a superintendent of the highway department, he's more than capable of overseeing that project work at no cost to the parks department. So I don't know, to me, it's like, why wouldn't we pursue that avenue? I mean, we're here to serve the community and to give them access to the lake, if they like to fish, they like to basically, you know, do water sports. If it's not gonna cost the parks department a lot of money, why wouldn't we do that?
I'm gonna say, and I said this before, and I maybe took my hand here. We do it for this community. What if every other community in this county does it? We're gonna have to do it for them. Are you prepared to do that? Because if people hear, well, we did it at the town of Oshkosh by Lake Petermore, what are we gonna say to any other community that's near, wants to access the water in their part of the county, the township? We're gonna have to say yes to them too. What kind of gates are we opening? That's what I'm concerned about. They're concerned about this. And that's what
Why the land, Mike, I would be concerned, if you can get a
We
free
still have to-
land, I think we can do it,
I'm
for
sorry.
anybody that asks.
but we first still have that the Parks Department's gonna have to maintain it somehow, some way. Who's gonna pay for that? I guess I don't see it as a big priority, and that's why I'm very leery of doing this, because I tell you, if we get the city of, the town of Oshkosh says, any other one who wants access to a lake or a water, access anywhere in this county, say, hey, you did it for them, you got to do it for us. That's what my worry is, and that's why I would lean against doing anything.
I think I might be leaning with mine. Are we looking at property that belongs to the town of Oshkosh? Is we looking to county property? Are we looking for some property that somehow belongs to the Parks Department? Because why is this coming to the Parks Department? Is any of this piece here parks?
Can I just give a summary, because I know there's 3 new supervisors since,
Go ahead.
and Jim, thanks for giving a summary as well, so you might hear a little bit of duplicate of what Mr. Urban was saying as well, and Bill for that matter too. And this was all in your packet, so once again, I won't read word for word, so I'm just gonna use more of the visuals than anything, honestly. I think I'll zoom in. So this is that Edgewood Lane, and actually, let me just even switch to, so you can see kind of where we were looking here. So this is, down here is West Wind, Road. This is the trailhead for the Wyowash, Trail north of Oshkosh. The Wyowash Trail goes, northwest here up to Riff Road. Over here, and this is Edgewood Lane, this is the town of Oshkosh, and we're gonna zoom in now, so you guys can at least understand a little bit of background. So, I believe 2 years ago now, maybe even 3, Mr. Erdman came to, my predecessor, Rob Way, and brought up a concern in regards to parking along Edgewood Lane. This is Edgewood Lane that I had on the GIS map. I just color coded it a little bit to give you an idea. Mr. Erdman kind of talked about it.
So
This,
you're talking about that yellow part,
so this is all Edgewood Lane. The colors.
the yellow and the red part.
Yep, what the colors mean, so it's a fire lane, which means it goes off into the water. It's kind of, I mean, it's lake access. The state looks at it as a lake access. However, it's also multi-purpose because it's obviously a fire lane. And this section here in red is parked, no parking on both sides. This section in yellow is parked, no parking on the south side, which is the town of Oshkosh territory. To the north is the city, and then the city kind of starts back up over here. You can
So
kind of
this is
see.
stuff we drove through when we took the
Yeah,
tour.
when
And
we
we
took
showed
the
one
tour.
side of the street.
Yes.
Okay,
Absolutely, and thank you for bringing that up. Yes, this was on our tour when we looked at these
Okay.
2 areas, and we drove down the Wyowash Trail, we drove down this.
Okay.
So that was an issue that was brought to our attention, because what happens when ice is not thick enough to drive your truck out on, but it's thin enough to get an ATV out on. People are parking here, driving their ATV out, and so it was a nuisance to the neighbors, people going through their yards and noise. I know you mentioned noise, those types of things. So then, what was discussed or brought to our attention or proposed by Mr. Erdman and the town of Oshkosh was to basically allow ATVs from Westwood Road parking lot to an access point. It's somewhere roughly in this area. That's what the red line's for, just to show you how far you'd have to go down the Wiwash Trail before you get into the lake. The bridge here, it wouldn't be crossing the bridge. As of right now, just a little bit of background, as right now, no ATVs are allowed. Well, let me walk through that. This is that parcel that they're referring to. And actually this sliver as well, you'll see. Zoom in on this map. I apologize. This map's a little more interactive, so I like to use this one when I can. These parcels here are DOT owned. I believe this one even, yeah, this one even too. So all three of these are DOT, and when they're referring to a parcel for a parking lot, they're referring to this parcel. So I just want to make that clear. And Western Road is right here. So I'm just going to flip back to mine so you can kind of, now you kind of see where we're at. So that's what they were talking about in regards to that DOT parcel. So then basically there's a few items, and some of them they've already addressed and brought up, but I'm just going to run through the items so you can see what we'd have to do or what the obstacles would be, or what the concerns are, the pros are. So I just listed some of the items that have been talked about over the last 2 or 3 years. So right now, the Wiwash Trail, we own the Wiwash Trail. The county owns the Wiwash Trail. However, the Wiwash Trail is a state designated trail. So for instance, when we closed it due to the power lines being down and the storm, the state called us and asked about, hey, we're receiving calls because it's on their website. It's a state designated trail. There's a master plan for this trail because it crosses county lines. It's just unique because the county owns it. Not many state designated trails do the county do counties own. Usually the counties just help maintain them. So that's just something that we'd have to work through with the DNR. It's a process we'd have to go through to update the master plan for the trail. It's just a process to go through. Maintenance of the trail. Yes, during dry times, for instance, right now, during the middle of the summer, actually ATC was just out there fixing power lines. And yeah, there was definitely, if you go out there right now, you'll see damage on the sides of the trail, and they're gonna work on that and getting that restored. But the trail itself, the trail surface itself is hard, it's compact, there's really not too much that's gonna wear it down. The biggest question is, so right now we don't have, Outagamie just recently bought, and that's where I have the $20,000. We don't have a piece of equipment that can grade a trail, or basically rip up the trail, basically regrade the trail. What you'll notice during softer times, and you'll notice this up north a lot on even their rails to trails, where they're mainly just snowmobile and ATV trails, so obviously they get a little bit more use. But you'll notice the tracks down them. I've ridden my bike on them before, and there's a track on each side because that's where the ATVs grind through the trail. As of right now, the trail use is walking, horseback riding, biking. So I'm missing snowmobiles in the winter, if there's snow. So that's seasonal. So the times of years they're talking about or proposing about to allow ATVs down the trail is that November to March time period. So staff's concern from a maintenance standpoint is that not necessarily January once again, because it's gonna be hard packed, most likely frozen. Obviously they'd have to work with snowmobile clubs because that's where their trailhead is for the snowmobile trail, which is under the DNR gives funding to the county for snowmobile trails as well. So we'd have to adjust some of that. But basically it's that November and March time where it could be soft. In theory, it could be soft, and even the trail, yes, the trail should hold up pretty well. It's the sides of the trail. You can't tell me that every single trail user is going to be respectful and just stay right on the trail, not go on the grass or up the trail. There's still going to be maintenance in the fall or in the spring. And I'm not saying that's not something that the park staff can't do, but I will speak for Tom and that we have 5 staff people for over 1,200 acres. I put 1,000 on here, but it's over 1,200. So yes, it might be minimal, but it is more work for our staff to do. And it's just something that the committee needs to be aware of, that I'm all for more recreational opportunities, more ability to, whether it's expanding access to lake, whether it's expanding access to trails, whatever it may be, but just understand that each little thing we do add, a parking lot, ATVs allowed, all those little things do add at least a little bit of maintenance, which adds up over time. So it's just something that needs to be considered. Parking, the current parking, I did this back in fall, and this was presented to committee, but obviously, you know, we have a few new members. Basically what this is the current parking lot at Wyowash. This is, I took a measurement of a typical truck and trailer. And basically we could fit 6 trucks and trailers that would have an ATV on them in that parking lot. It is a small parking lot. You can actually see, and I know it, I'm not an engineer. You can even see number 1 here is pretty small if you were to have to back out this way and go out. So, but I wanted to try to fit in as many as possible, what I thought probably could fit in there. Obviously, if they're going off the parking lot, there's gonna be some damage there we'll have to figure out. But what they're talking about, what Mr. Urban was talking about in regards to parking, in the meantime, if there wasn't a parking lot, is Lake Beatamore Drive here. My only concern with that from a park standpoint, not necessarily road, because I'm not a road expert per se, is that I know that a user is going to take the path of least resistance, and they're just going to drive down this grass hill, which once again, that's more ruts and things we need to fix when you're talking about spring and things getting a little bit mushier. So it's just, you know, obviously we're just thinking of all the different things we're going to have to maintain. Cost, we talked about a lot of cost actually here, so I'm not going to go over this too much. You know, 2023, our operating budgets, there's a 4% proposed increase by finance for wages, but as a whole, we had to have a 0% levy increase. So we've been looking at our budget with fine tooth and comb to try to figure out how we're going to continue to keep up supplies, keep up with utility, gas rates going up, electrical is going up 9% next year, gas is going up 9% next year. So for the pieces of equipment and the materials that we need for our current operations, we need to stay at 0% somehow, compared to, and so obviously adding additional, we're going to need additional maintenance items. An MOA, this was talked about last fall, an MOA between the, you know, if there is going to be obviously work done, the town is going to donate or help with, obviously, and that's simple. That's just something that the town and the county and the Parks Committee would just need to work on, just an MOA of saying what the town's going to do versus what the county is going to do. What is the long-term maintenance of it? So those are all different things that have to be worked on. Permitting, a lot of things were brought up. And this would, I'll include the DOT. So the DOT, Supervisor Binder kind of mentioned it. If we did pursue any sort of acquisition of any of those parcels, yes, most likely it would be free. If the DOT is willing to part with it. We just know from, I know from previous experience, but then also from the Jerry Finch Winnebago Dog Park that some of you experienced, that process usually takes about a year from the time you start that process with a DOT real estate representative, typically. Now, that doesn't mean that it can't, but that's how long the Jerry Finch Winnebago County Dog Park took. We were working on a parcel off of Highway 96 at my previous place, and it took them a year as well. So not saying it can't go faster. I'm just saying that is what the process, that's completely out of our control. That's a state process. We mentioned the wetland, obviously in that parking lot area. Once again, that's not something that means we can't do the project. That just means something that we have to work through the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources to do a wetland delineation and to get it approved. So, I mean, with any project, if we're going to put permeable surface in anywhere, just like with the expo, we have to go through the permitting process. We at least have to submit an NOI with the DNR, which is a notice of intent that we're going to be putting, we're going to be building if it's under an acre. So they do look through that process. Once again, it's not anything that we can't do. It's something that obviously, you know, we haven't had budget, we don't have plans for. So if this committee, and that's why we're meeting obviously on this today, is if this committee decides that we want to go a certain route, then we need to start some of those processes and potentially seek budgeting authority to, spending authority, I should say, to be able to do some of these. Yeah, I went through all, oh, and I have been in talks, now granted, we have a new Wisconsin DNR rep in this area, but there would be some minor permitting to access the lake. Enforcement, nothing's really changed from last fall. I spoke to the Winnebago County Sheriff's Department Officer Ciensicola. He's in charge of the patrol. And I just asked him, what, if ATVs, what's kind of stopping ATVs from continuing to go down the trail, and does the sheriff department have capacity to enforce anything? For the most part, they don't. We'd have to look at a bollard or a gate or something of that sort past the bridge. That could be opened by the snowmobile clubs, but then closed when, maybe snowmobile trails aren't open, to try to allow horse and bike users to still get through, but to limit motorized vehicles from going further. Chapter 19, that's just something that we'd have to change as well. Once again, that's just a process. So our county code, chapter 19, currently indicates that no vehicle use of any kind is allowed on the trail, other than emergency police or county maintenance vehicles, other than snowmobiles. So we would need to, if something were to go down this route, the committee and the county board would have to amend chapter 19 to allow ATVs.
And then here again, you would have to do that for all the trails, not just this part of the trail, right?
Not
to be consistent,
necessarily.
I mean,
You
wouldn't that be-
could.
I mean, I guess that's another thing. If we want to be consistent, which I would want to be, you can't just say, well, this part of the trail, you can use ATV, but other parts
So
of the trail will not scooter trail. Oh, you can't. That's.
you could say that it's good from west wind to rift as an example, or west wind to whatever GPS coordinate the bridge as an example. The biggest thing is just simply education and enforcement, because if it's allowed there, you need to make sure that people understand that it's not allowed anywhere else on that trail. So you could write it in the chapter 19. And that's really, there's some other things, obviously, there's user conflict and corporation council review at the end of the day, but that's standard. We do corporation council review for any of these types of things. So anyways, that's what I have from a staff perspective, and that's just some of the items to think about.
Any other committee members?
All this change for the trail, this is all in vain.
The code would have to change, correct? I mean, technically, otherwise ATVs would be going down it illegally.
So
So
it's not that hard to change the code. Last year, the snowmobile trails were never opened up. The whole year, there was not one snowmobile that ran down that trail. So that trail was never opened up for a snowmobile, yet we paid them, they took from the DNR around $20,000 snowmobile trail maintenance. I'm sure that if we opened that up, there would be money available through the DNR for trail maintenance for the ATVs. They pay a fee to register the ATV. And $20,000 for the groomer to groom that, we could use it at Kenny Robo Park. The Cinder Trail is a disaster. You go through it, it's nothing but weeds. And Tom said he sprayed it 3 times. At the very minimum, we ought to get that piece of land from the state, and that'll take a year. So that'll give us a year to decide where we're gonna get the funding and how we're gonna build a parking lot. And like Mr. Demler said, we can let the people walk down the trail. We don't necessarily have to open it up to ATV. All we have to do is give them a place to park their vehicle so they can take their sled and walk on Snow Lake.
But you answered my next question. So. I'm trying to get this in my head and get pulled the map. What's this proposed parking lot? What road is it off? And off Red Lake Beautiful Drive. And place that in my mind.
yeah, it's right as you round the corner.
Yes. Old Highway 110. No, okay. You know where Castle Pierce, yes, I know where that, the old mansion's over there.
That's on the corner. Castle Pierce is on the corner of Rip Road and Lake Beaumont Drive. So if you come south down Lake Beaumont Drive, you'll come all the way down around the curve and you'll come out by that, well, you'll come down by that Hex Cove, used to be Eddie's Evergreen. Arena down there.
I don't have to look at that.
I was pulling it.
You
You might,
parking lot, like where our parking lot is on this diagram. There's 3 partials are right in front of our parking lot. So it would be a continuation of our parking lot. Our parking lot butts up to those 3 partials. So it basically, we'd be expanding our parking lot, which would be giving them more room. And the town is willing to put a culvert in off of Lake Beaumont Drive, so they could just turn in. They have 2 entrances. We have an entrance on Westwood. And they'd have an entrance on Lake Beaumont Drive, so they could drive down here and drive out this way, or they could go this way, and they wouldn't even have to back out, you know, it'd make it easier for them.
Is
And the land would be free.
everybody willing to do this? If the off-road vehicles can't go on that trail.
Yeah.
I mean, is that?
Jim, remember, I keep this discussion among ourselves, it's up down to the committee now, I'm afraid to say, okay? All right, Rachel, you have anything?
I guess my only question, it seems like the town of Oshkosh needs us to request the land, is that correct?
They need us to request land, and technically, no. No, technically, I think,
I'm just,
I don't want to speak for the town of Oshkosh, but being that the Wawash Trails are flooding the land, and that we have a parks department, that's why they're approaching us.
okay,
No,
so what's,
it's in the town, so the town, yes, could request the property from the DOT, I would think too.
Could they do this project by themselves?
I mean, that's a question for the town, that's,
We got the staff on hand to do it, they would have to hire an attorney, and it would be added cost to the town. Like when Rob basically got the box for the dog park, Rob did all the paperwork for the town, we got both the council to help us. They don't have the resources that we have on hand. You know, I mean, it's like everything we do in the county, we do for the towns, the cities, the villages. We're just a resource that they can tap. It's kind of like, you know, we're here to help them get what they want and, you know, for the people. It's not just gonna be the town of Oshkosh residents that are gonna use that. A lot of the town of Oshkosh live on the lake. So they already can use that, but there's such an overflow when, you know, when the fish are biting. You can go out the other side of the lake, like where Skipper Buzz is, but it's very dangerous to cross that because the water comes through there, and when they're going there, the ice is really thin, and more than likely their ATV is gonna fall in, and they're gonna risk their life to catch a fish. And that's why they go out to Edgewater, because they don't have to cross the center of the body of water. So if they can fish there, and, you know, you hear these drownings all the time, and the ice boats going out and rescuing them. But all we're doing is we're talking about getting 5 acres of land for free from the state. They're willing to put the culvert in, put the gravel in, and if we don't want to open the trail up, then they'll have to walk down to get off. We'll fulfill the need that the community is asking for.
yeah,
And I believe that's what we're here for.
and to that point, additional parking for the Wawash Trail in this area, this is the most, actually, we have a trail counter out there. Now, this is the most utilized part of the trail. We only have 2 months worth of data, otherwise I would show you, you know, we'll see how it averages for the year. I will say, I mean, more parking in this area isn't. I mean, I feel that would be beneficial, I mean, closer to the lake. I think the biggest question and issue just comes down to the ATV use, which can still be discussed, but. Yeah, parking lot in this area would definitely fit a need no matter what.
I mean,
The biggest question though is still, I didn't bring up in the budget, the cost of the parking lot, because. The gravel parking lot at Jerry Finn's Winnebago Dog Park, similar to this size, was about 40,000
okay.
for
so-
highway to do it.
Sure, can we like start the paperwork for the town of Oshkosh and then give them the land to take over and maintain, so that that's off our hands? Cause I'm kind like, back to what Supervisor Norton said, we have so many other parks that we need to maintain and keep track of, and I like the idea of giving the citizens access to the water. I mean, I don't live on the water, so I like access to the water, that's a big priority to me. But can we do that, where we start the paperwork to request this from the state and then pass on the land to the town to take over and maintain?
I mean, that's a discussion with the town and
And I
the
guess
committee, I guess, in
part of-
terms of what.
Part of I would want this member and understanding beforehand too, because I want to know what they're all going to be responsible for. That's what worries me, not. So,
I mean, like $40,000 for a parking lot, like that's gravel, that seems. like an adequate amount of money, but
I mean,
again,
we can ask,
if we have a 0% levy. Where's that coming from?
and we'd have to engage with the city just to make sure that they let us do gravel. They might, because Westwind's already gravel, and we might have an argument there. They allowed us to do the expo and gravel. This is in the town. Oh, yeah, this isn't the town. Thank you. Thank you.
We don't have to do any of that.
I mean, to be honest, Chairman, you asked about, you know, the MOA and the town of Oshkosh, and you do have two people from the town of Oshkosh here.
And one other thing we can remember, we got $33 million in our fund. And that money is to improve the drainage and, you know, we want to give something back to the community. I mean, your children are gonna be paying for it for the next, you know, for the rest of their life. So we want to use some of that money for something that is gonna benefit the community down the line. I don't fish. It's not gonna benefit me. I don't have a four-wheeler, I don't have a four-wheel, and I don't fish. It's not gonna benefit me. But the people that use it, I just feel that that's what the money is there for. You know, I mean, so it's like, we can hook that up to a drainage plan and get that out of our ARPA fund. And it'll be there for the next 100 years, because once that access is there, that access will likely be there for those people forever. But once that gets taken away and it would get developed, or the state would sell it to a developer, it's gone. You know, you're not gonna get it back because somebody's gonna build something there and it's gone. So it's like, it's not gonna cost us nothing to pursue that lot. You know, so the state gets us to us in a year, and in a year, who knows what our tax levy will be next year? Or if we can push it through like the expo for the $3 million for parking lot, I'd like to get that out of the ARPA fund rather than the county's budget. So perhaps we can get the expo for the 3 million and we can get the 40,000 out of our budget.
Right.
You
No,
know,
I hear what you're saying. I just, the ARPA funds is gonna be a bloodbath. I don't
So-
want to agree on that.
So I like, many members, I'd like to have some direction on this. I mean, it says popular action. And you have any motion you want to make or anything to do? Do we? I mean,
I'd like to motion that we start the paperwork on behalf of the city of Oshkosh to see if we can even obtain the property. Because if that's gonna take a year, we need to get the ball rolling. I'm sorry, I apologize, town of Oshkosh.
So,
there's a second,
I'll second it.
second by Steve, okay. Do you understand what the motion is? Adam, do you understand what the motion is?
To basically reach out to the Wisconsin DOT in regards to if they have any interest in turning the parcel over to the county, is what I understand.
So if you turn it over to the county, then we could basically look at the county.
Correct. But at least we could help them on the legal end, corporate councils, get the ball rolling, get the paperwork in order.
Yeah.
Because up until we get the land, this is all a hypothetical discussion.
Like Adam said.
No, that's, it's, yeah, that's
I
true.
gotta
You
make
know
sure
what I
that
mean?
Adam.
Like, I don't wanna waste time, but
Right.
we don't have any land.
No, I want to make sure that's what you have in mind, Rachel and Steve. Adam, you understand it? Okay, you two got, okay, motion been made and second. Any discussion from you two?
So this is just to start paperwork to see if we can even acquire land. Because I'll admit, I don't have an ATV, I don't ice fish, I don't look for water access. I'm completely lost on this, and I don't know where this parking lot proposal is. And it looks like all those pieces of property are, they all got numbers. I assume they're all sold to somebody.
So this is, GIS that states what they are, so it's ownership department of, transportation. So,
The property they want to put the parking lot on is DOT property right there.
yep, so this,
Okay.
actually, I just did because Jim,
Okay.
you were wondering what it looked like, this, this is the parking lot.
Okay.
Adam, could you,
Or not the parking lot, the parcel, and then our parking lot's down here.
can you drop a pin in the parcel and then zoom out so we see where it is, where you should do the rest of the area?
Just as,
I think that's like, supervisor powers.
Yeah,
as a reference, when we took the tour and we were in the red bus.
Right.
And I drove down the trail,
Yeah,
when I first entered the trail, it was to your right. So it was that first section on the
Okay.
right.
okay.
so right here is that parcel, and this doesn't have like the parcel outline. And then here is the parking lot that we went into, and then we drove down this trail, and then this parcel's off to your right. There's ATC lines overhead to the right.
It's all
And then-
Buckthorn.
Yep, it's all Buckthorn right now. It's it's, has wetland indicators. That doesn't mean that it's officially wetland. We'd have to do a wetland delineation. A wetland delineation of, well, we can do a wetland determination first. The DNR will pretty much come out for free. And because you can't put anything on there if there's indicators.
Right,
So,
that's protected wetlands, I know.
yeah, or at least see if there are really any out there.
Can you move, now if I say down, you go the other way, can you move it, so as we're, there's the old parking lot.
Yep.
Yonder,
Yep,
now go up the trail.
okay.
How far is it to the water? Is that the water?
So if this was a parking lot. We were talking somewhere roughly here where there's some steps, that's already an opening into the water, so 1,600 feet. It's roughly here, might even be a little bit more down. Yeah, there's some
So
steps somewhere here,
You're gonna start out with the
or actually to the wooded area, so that actually is down here.
proposal that we try to acquire the land. Sure.
Well, so yeah, so from what I'm understanding,
That's all I've done so far, because if we don't have land, I mean, we. can't
So do you have any more
anything.
questions or thoughts on the motion, you two?
I'm not
Okay.
comfortable with that.
Okay. All in favor of the motion, can we say aye?
Right.
All opposed? That passed, okay?
Who's gonna check on?
And
well, I'll call the DOT.
Tell them we keep competing with the DOT for these lands, people have no clue. TNR is also, they got no problem with just open up the water wash up to that bridge, there's a sign right there where you park, that you can't go with your ATV past there. ATVs need to get out there, those are your serious fishermen, none of you people fish, you know that goddamn crew. We'll be calling DOT and we'll, let the town take care of this, get that trail opened up that the ATVs can go from there to the bridge.
item number 7, staff update.
I'm sorry, is that out loud?
I'm sorry, staff, one more time, staff update, start with Tom, I'm sorry.
Life Fest went well, the new grounds served us well, even though we were in the middle of construction, they treated it rather with kid gloves, so we had one issue, minor. Soccer Saturday also went well, we survived the rainstorm and everything dried up fast, so. They were a little smaller this year, but they had a good event, we did get news from the highway, building superintendent, equipment superintendent, that with their lack of mechanics, they will no longer work on any of our equipment, including oil changes, so we're sort of, that was just ripped out from underneath this, so we're sending stuff down to other contractors, we're doing a lot more stuff in-house, and like, and going back to my high school welding class, it's a big stuff, but we're doing quite a bit of that. Sunday, I got a call early in the morning that we had high voltage lines down on the wheel wash. And there was 10 transmission poles partially on the trail, mostly in the lake. So they just tipped over and fell into the lake, which is quite to see 69,000 volt electrical lines laying in the lake. Uniform. But as of this afternoon, they fixed it and they did a partial repair on the trails. They actually probably did us a favor because they ripped up the sides pretty good, so when the highway comes in later this summer, they're gonna be paving that with limestone resurfacing it, so they got rid of a lot of stuff that the highway normally would have to do. So we also lost approximately 110 trees in this last storm on Saturday. Eureka is destroyed, the whole park, all but 2 trees were wiped out.
Oh, wow.
So that'll take us probably 2 weeks to clean up. So it just looks like a tornado hit it. The whole town here, they got hit really hard. And we got a fair set up this week and we're losing seasons.
What was that last year? Sorry.
I'll,
I
no,
didn't hear that either.
I'll take that. So. Yesterday afternoon, we received, well, Tom was working with county sheriff and we received word of one of our seasonals passing away, overnight, Sunday night. So that's all.
Was
we
it
know
storm
at this-
related?
No.
No,
That's all we know at this time.
okay.
So unfortunately, it's been a hard week for staff.
Sorry.
Well, just 2 months ago, we found a guy hanging in the woodworking shop, so. It's a bad situation, one guy from
Yeah.
facility,
Oh, that's
hanged himself, and now they lose another coworker, it's,
And a guy shooting himself in the parking lot.
at the expo center.
Yeah,
It's
so
a whole different climate out there, and the pressure on people is so great, and it's. I don't know how you give them stuff to get their mind off the problem, because
Are we, does the first department send some sort of like a condolence card to the family since they were a facility part of our first community, or can we organize that?
yeah, we haven't had those conversations quite yet, but yeah, I mean, absolutely. we can look at that.
Thank you.
I don't have any updates right now.
And what also Tom was talking about too, is we do lose 3 seasonal staff members, 2 this Friday, 1 by next Wednesday, so. We start getting more and more short, so we'll be down to just 3 seasonals left. And so that'll slow down our grass cutting, and then we'll be cleaning up from storms all at the same time, so. Yeah, so that's where we're at with seasonals right now. The Grumman Boat Landing. I have a meeting on August 9th at the Horcon Marsh office in regards to the recreational boating fund grant. That's where we present on our grant. And we should find out by the end of that day as to if we received the grant and how much we received the grant for. So I will keep the committee up to date on that. That is a Tuesday, so I will do a special update on that if we do receive a large grant to keep everyone up to date. Also, the committee asked about what it would cost to add water to the Grumman Boat Landing. Instead of doing a dry bathroom, add water to the site that could be expanded later on for boat wash or those types of things. Basically, to add water to the site and bring water into the building and make it a wet bathroom, we'd be looking at roughly 30,000 increase to the plan. So if anyone has strong feelings on that, let me know. And when we come to ask for funding approval for the Grumman Boat Landing and construction portion of the project, we can decide if that's going to be added into the project or not. Staff are working with a company on potentially we're still replacing the sign out at the expo. We're trying to coordinate with Corp Council on reviewing that lease agreement. Silent Bridge North Approach, we're still trying to work with the contractor. Radke still has not finished the asphalt on the north side. And we send out multiple emails a week to figure out when that's actually going to get done. Jerry Finch, Winnebago County Dog Park, lighting should be up within the next 3 weeks, really, probably technically the next 2, but I'm, because that was a week ago that they said 3 weeks, but with the storm, I'm gonna add on another week to that, just in case they had some cleanup that they had to do, so. But we should have lighting being installed within the next couple weeks. Tom mentioned the parking lots, and next agenda, we'll be talking about expo utilities, or at least from a staff perspective, we need to talk about expo utilities. And then potentially the Grumman budget request will be on next month's agenda. It just depends on when we hear about the grant and putting the last pieces together, like with the water and that kind of thing. We can get that on the agenda for next month. That will put us on track for the county board and personnel and finance in September. Otherwise, we will present it in September and it will be on track for October for personnel financing. That's all I have for my update.
Committee member updates. Steve, you first.
Well, I think that with our staffing issues, like the highway department, they're 2 mechanics short. And they have another guy that's looking for a job, and there'd be 3 mechanics short very shortly. So that's why they're not doing any hour work. They only have 5 mechanics. So they have 3 mechanics right now that do all the work for the highway department, and then another guy's gonna be leaving shortly, so they're gonna be down 2 mechanics out of 5. I talked with Mike Elders, they're gonna bid out snow plowing this year. He has nobody to plow the sidewalks and buildings. We don't have facility workers, and our roundabouts in the park are just terrible. I think we need to bid them all. We don't have to make, you could cut trees for the next 6 months. You know, that's how many trees we got down. So how do we take care of the parks work, you know, unless we start bidding some of these projects out? You know, I just don't think like the one by the soccer shelter, I mean, you can almost not even get another fifth cylinder, they're so thick. You know, and they're going to seed. When they go to seed, that means that there's more coming. You know, I just think we have to look at bidding some of our work out because we don't have the manpower, the capability to keep up anymore. And just like the highway department is shutting you down on the maintenance for their equipment. Mike is gonna bid out the snow plowing because he has nobody to plow the sidewalks. We have to look at the projects we can do that we can do cheaper or, you know, somewhat a better job than what we can bid out. But those two roundabouts, I mean, we gotta do something with them. I mean, that one roundabout, I'm almost embarrassed when people call me up and, you know, and I can't ask Tom to do it. How can he do it? He's got trees all over to cut down, you know, I mean, then somebody goes and burns down the porta potty. You know, it's like, I don't know what's happening, but it's like we just gotta look at other alternatives because we don't have the manpower to get the work done, and yet some of the stuff has to be done. You know, I mean, we got how many stumps to grind in County Park that basically should have been done in the spring, and there's we haven't got to them. There's probably 60 stumps out there that need to be, you know, and now you got all the little trees growing around the stumps. So I just think we have to look at bidding some of these projects out to keep the park on task. And I realize it's gonna be hard because you gotta cut 4% of your budget. But if we have to ask for more money, we have to ask for more money. I don't know how we can just keep letting things slide. And I mean, those roundabouts are only 7 years old. I think that's what we did the road. And you ride through the one and look by the soccer shelter, there's literally probably 1,000 thistles in there that are 3 feet tall.
Rachel, you next.
Okay.
Jim, next.
I know.
No comment on that.
I guess I'm just gonna go on record and saying, being sworn at and hearing God's name defiled. And blamed because I don't own an ATV toy. Doesn't necessarily endear me to the requests of the community. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, come to mind. First of all, everyone, I asked you to bring what questions you wanted to include in a small survey that we'll be sending out to the whole rest of our county board members. If you have proposed questions that you like general, like 3 or 4, Adam, I think, or someone will get them together, and I've not talked to her, but I'm sure that the county clerk would email, and hopefully, what I would do, I'd ask her to get them all emailed to everyone on the county board. And then I'd probably make an announcement at the next county board meeting, and I'd say, give them another week or so, and we'll collect them. So do people have questions now? And I don't want a big 10, 12, because, you know, I don't think our colleagues will answer a long survey, but just some very basic questions. And anyone to start, just raise your hand and start, okay? Rachel, you better, because you
I
are,
have so many questions. for this.
okay,
Okay, I would like to know what county parks people are already using, and then what amenities mean the most to them. So whether that's water access, trail access.
now you know this is for our fellow county supervisor, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I would still like to know, like,
Okay,
them
okay,
personally or their families, or maybe they don't use the park system at all.
okay. But
To like start with questions like that.
like, what's your knowledge of the county park system? What do you, okay, any other questions? I mean, a few more to,
I guess I'd like to ask them what they feel the greatest need is in the park system.
okay, that's a good question.
We're asked them for funding. I guess I'd like to know what they think that we need, so that when we ask them for funding, that we're going in the right direction. We all know what we think we need.
Right, I mean, that's one of the things I'm trying to do is, Rachel's good question, what do you know of the county park system? The only thing you know is the county park system is this park and expo, then you have to educate them a lot. And next thing, what do you think we need? Maybe a couple other questions, anyone, like, what's your general feeling about parks in Winnebago County?
Yeah, I like that question.
You know, because I think, I just want to get a very good taste, because if we have, you know, and they can either be anonymous or can sign a name, but if we get a lot of responses, well, we don't know what the county park system is, maybe we need to educate them more on that, okay? Any other ones? Jim?
Is there a possibility that there could be a map that shows all the boat landings, all the trails?
I'm gonna get some, okay. Okay, anything else? And Adam, that? You heard what the question, John? Can you?
Yeah, Justin, have you been writing them down?
Okay,
Or-
thank you, John. I mean,
Yeah, thank you.
like, I have not talked to the finance clerk yet, but I'm sure she'd be willing to email out, and then, like I say,
Justin, I
and then.
just want to make sure you get. You're written, or at least. some-
And I would probably make an announcement the next county board meeting, hey, you got this email,
Justin.
we'll give them till like the end of August to. Email, and I guess I'd send the email to probably to you, Adam. I mean, the response is back to you or. to
Yeah, we
me.
can compile them too, because they'll,
Okay,
we'll probably do like a survey monkey or something.
okay, something like that, and that's how I handle it, okay? That's the one thing I'm glad, because I'm like, I know I'm a couple months late on that, but that's what I wanted to do. The second thing I want to share, when I was in, at the NACO conference in Denver, I went to this. Breakout session called Parks Prepare Post-Pandemic Pivot, and, part of it had to do, they had, someone from the National Association of Park and Recreation Association. And they also had, two people, one from a, park ranger from Jefferson County, right near there, and from Adams County. It was very interesting. They talked about, and I did talk to Adam for this, about the parks. He used to work in with the high demand they had for the parks, but also, you know, the increase in use of the park usage. But what I've gotten mostly out of this workout, breakout session was what ideas I got. Here's a couple ideas. I want to throw them out to you. One thing, what they did in Adams County is they had a arts in the park program. And not just murals, but they also had, I thought I see, because they had a wood carving. They told us that they had, somebody did a wood carving of a Sasquatch on the trail. And so that got me to thinking about what I would like to do. And Brian definitely from a board's honor, he's interested in arts and that. And I said, what about having an arts committee for the county? And what I would like to do, and we can act on this next month, I'd like to get an ad hoc committee. I'm glad the chairman, this ad hoc, let's see, get some people, I think Rachel would be good on it, maybe Brian definitely, and work on what the details of what this park, what I would call a arts and culture committee for the county would do. If you think that's a good idea, bring it back next month, and Jim, you could, and like I say, it'd be ad hoc. I would expect this small group to meet for 2-3 months, and you work out the details, what's this responsible for. I don't know if we'd ask for money or not, you know, Brian thought we would. That's what I would like to do. I'm sure I could talk to the chairman. I would say the parks committee we had to probably have to at least post a meeting, subcommittee meeting. I mean, I wouldn't have to be on it, but like I say, I think Rachel might be good on it. Jim, Jeffrey, I'll announce that, if that's okay with the chairman for doing that, okay, that's one idea. The other idea I had, and maybe you know this, Adam, or an app, one of the counties around the country today said, how do you develop an app? And they got resources of a couple of different counties around the country that have an app on that they use. And have you ever heard of this? You ever thought of that, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, I've thought of it, not in this community yet, but.
Okay.
others.
What I'm thinking, this is thinking, I'm not saying we do it next month, I'm saying maybe early spring. What I was thinking, you know, when Jim's idea about let's have a map of the boat launches, is what if we got together and maybe whoever want to work on this, I think, I know one person is committee might be interested in that. Develop an app for the park system for everyone in the county, and we include Anita, the Oshkosh River, if that is doable, because one thing I got is in North Carolina, they had this great program that is bond for parks, and some of the commissioners there got mad, well, why are we giving the money to local municipal parks? I think that's the wrong approach. Maybe this is a good way that we can start working with, I mean, I know Rachel's on the National Parks Board, maybe we could work together with the other park boards in this county in some joint project like that. So that's my ideal, maybe an app, and maybe we could, like I say, I'm not saying next month or two, but maybe in spring, and maybe put that, not on the back burner, but front. I know you have other things, but some we could work on, okay? And this lastly, about, they don't, in Adams County, they don't have seasonals. He said they
What?
don't have seasonal employees. They stopped having seasonal park employees like midway through this pandemic, they said, no, we can't have that. We have full-time people and, takes too much to take care of project, the parks, because they have so many public parks, both what we call open space and public parks, so yeah, they don't have seasons, so. That's a couple of, the last thing, and I thought, Steve knows this, a couple of years ago, I proposed about having a citizen member a part of this board. And I'd like to bring it up and have you all think about, make an action item next month. And just like the other boards, the chairman of the board would appoint it. And we have a citizen member. So I don't want to have a discussion point, because obviously we can't discuss them, but I would bring it up as a next, our next parks meeting. And if we agree to it, then I'd ask to be put on the, county board agenda. And then whoever, if my idea was successful, I'd probably, anyone who could recommend, anyone to town, the chairman, you appoint, and then every 2 years, that position would be up for reappointment like the other one. So that's, I think it'd be good to get a citizen, especially if we found a citizen that met a need that maybe this committee doesn't need. I mean, we have pretty good representation geographically, except one area. I've been on this committee off and on for 20 years. We've never had really anyone from the rural part, west of 41. Maybe we could talk to the chairman about maybe finding someone for that part of the county. But that's just my idea. So I would like for action items next time, maybe consideration of a citizen member of this, that wouldn't affect our quorum because we still need 3 no matter what. And we just begin that process. So that's my report. Thank you. Next item, next meeting date. What is the third Monday, right? We mean
Then the fourth Monday,
fourth Monday, okay,
you change this one to the April
right. Thank you.
Yep.
What day is that?
22nd of August.
I have it down on my calendar for 22nd.
Okay, time,
I have 3 o'clock.
should we make it 3:30 for Jim?
You guys can start without.
Oh, we could.
No,
never
no,
start
no,
with
no,
that.
no. I'm gonna say this, no,
Oh, don't get carried away.
I will say,
3:30.
3:30, I will say, is a pre for October, November, December, when Steve is on golf. Right?
I have a UW extension or Fox Valley trustee meeting on Mondays. So 3:30 works better for me because their meeting starts at 1 and I have a hard time getting here.
Well, what I was,
Okay.
what I'm gonna say, possibly, when your golf's done. And he's then we're cutting grass, maybe the Tuesday would work better, but right now, we'll say Monday, the 22nd of August, 3:30 p.m. 10th item, future agenda items. My item I brought up, at least one item, maybe 2 citizen member of the committee and maybe an ad hoc committee to look at arts and culture committee. Arts, culture, and education, that's something up your alley, Jim, but that's pretty future agenda items. You might have some about this Beatamore thing, right? You might have.
I might have an update.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna reach out to the DOT. And I know I have some context from previous. Yes.
Okay.
You'll have the electric bill from like Light Fest, how much that will.
I got the first lot 3 bill. I don't know if by the time I make this agenda, I'll only have that 1 bill. So we'll definitely start the conversation though.
I'm 11 adjournment. I'm open for adjournment.
So moved.
Moved by Karen Power, second by Jim Podner. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.